RASL is, I would describe it as a sci-fi noir, similar to something like Blade Runner or, sort of like a Jason Bourne movie with a science fiction edge on it. It's something like that. It's the story of an art thief, an interdimensional art thief, who has these giant power pack thermomagnetic engines that he rests on his shoulders. And with those, he can warp space and actually step across from one parallel world to the next parallel world. I came up with the idea for RASL, like in 1999, and I remember in like 2000, I started talking to other cartoonist friends of mine, just bouncing the ideas off them. Something that's I do a lot, and some of my friends do with me. And I remember talking to Paul Pope and Frank Miller in New York City, and they loved the idea. And for a while, the three of us were thinking about doing all our science fiction stories, like the three of them, in like a big anthology called Big Big. But our schedules never really lined up, so that didn't happen. And Bone took a lot longer to finish than I anticipated. But eventually, in 2007, I was finally ready to start thinking about, doing RASL and being, serious about it. And the concept had changed a lot over 7 years while it was just percolating. And I kind of knew where the story was going to end, and I knew kind of what was happening, but I really needed to organize it and really put some teeth into the story. So I went out to Arizona because I knew part of the story was going to happen there. I knew part of it was going to take place in the desert. So I went out to Arizona for a couple of weeks, and I would go out into the desert every day where there was nothing to distract me except the sounds of like insects, basically, or occasionally a bird screeching overhead. And the desert's an amazing place. It's 110 degrees. It's so still. There's just nothing. It's almost like there's nothing there. So everything inside you can just come out, if that makes any sense. So I could kind of lose all the busyness of running a comic book company, of just day-to-day life, and just concentrate on the books. And something really did start happening there. I was able to sit on a rock in that blazing heat and start writing. And this story began to emerge of RASL and Lizardface and this femme fatale named Maya, these three characters, into a very kind of like hard-boiled story, really kind of came to life while I was working out in the desert. And I was really turned on visually by film noir because there's these crazy angles, and they were done in the black and white era, so you usually have like real heavy shadows, and there's always like diagonals slicing right through the character's face. It's all very disjointed and uncomfortable. I spent about a year studying hard science, reading about the latest theories in physics, string theory, modifications of it like M theory. I wasn't reading textbooks, but I was reading Brian Greene and Stephen Hawking and Carl Sagan, and just trying to get a handle on what scientists really think is possibly happening on all levels of our world. And it's those scientists, it's those physicists who really do look at the math and they say, you know what, there are parallel universes, and they have theories about how these parallel universes work, that they're right near us, that we just can't quite get to them, that we're stuck to a membrane, which is what the M and M theory stands for, that if we could just get to the other parallel universes, it'd be quite similar to us because they're only about half an electron away. So after about a year of trying to figure out where the real science was, then I delved into the fun science, the fringe science, which that's where you encounter the infamous Nikola Tesla and Einstein, who completed his unified field theory in 1928, but apparently withdrew it because it was too dangerous. Same thing with Nikola Tesla. Apparently, he made many announcements that he had completed a unified field theory, but he didn't share them with anyone for fear that the world wasn't ready. An interesting Nikola Tesla story is that in the early 1900s, he held a big press conference to demonstrate his death ray. Tesla's a scientist who's the archetypal mad scientist. His laboratory in Colorado is what the Dr. Frankenstein laboratory was modeled on, with all the electricity and stuff. But he held a big press conference in like 1910 or so, where he was going to demonstrate to the world his death ray. And the press filed in and they asked questions, and he made a big pronouncement that I will now turn on the death ray. And he pulled the sheet off the death ray and he threw the switch, and nothing happened. And he was very disappointed, and everybody left. Well, it turns out that at that exact moment and time and date was the Tunguska event, the big event in Siberia where all the trees were just leveled. Some unimaginable explosion took place and just flattened trees out in a huge radius, almost like Mount St. Helens, exactly like Mount St. Helens. So basically, according to fringe science, Tesla may have had his death ray pointed the wrong way, and it shot through the earth and leveled a section of Siberia. So that's what's fun about fringe science, and it's also kind of what I wanted to play with. I wanted to have RASL be this line between hard, real, edge physics and fringe science. RASL is not a sequel to Bone, and it is not. It's a much more grown-up book. I think a high school kid could read it. I mean, there are more adult situations. There's sex and murder, but it's definitely not for 7-year-olds. That's for sure.
I think we've probably got it covered.